like that sometimes. Right? We know, like, it be like that sometimes. We're engaging in our relationships, dealing with people. It's like some people, they just a little difficult, right? It's just a little difficult to deal with. And as much as we try to avoid it, as much as we try to avoid the problems, as much as we try to keep everything nice and copacetic in our life and everything's prim and proper, like the reality is that we have all at some point in our lives encountered some people problems, right? We've all dealt with some people problems, some issues, some drama, some nonsense in our lives. And what that means is we all at some point in our lives have dealt with some problem people. Right, those people who you just like, God, I just wish I didn't have to deal with them. I wish I didn't have to talk to them. I wish I didn't have to see them. But we can't get around it because sometimes you live with them. Right, sometimes it's your kids. Sometimes it's your spouse. Shh. You don't say nothing. But sometimes your coworkers, right? It's the people that are closest to you that present the most problems and they just drain the life out of you. So we've been saying, hey, how do we better have relationships? How do we better engage in those relationships? Because what we want to do is ignore them. What we want to do is act like they don't exist. What we want to do is not deal with the nonsense and deal with the mess. But the reality is maybe there's a better way. Like maybe there's a better way to engage in those relationships. Maybe there's a better way to have those difficult conversations. And maybe, just maybe, we can actually have healthy relationships as we learn to deal with the people that drain the life out of us. So we've been having this conversation over the last couple of weeks, and Pastor Jack kicked it off in our first 2 weeks, first week, talking about those people who, if we gave them the opportunity, they would love to control every aspect of our life, right? They're just controlling, like it has to be their way or the highway. They want to tell you how to live. They want to tell you who to date. They want to tell you where to go, where to work, how you should pay your bills. Like all of this, they have all this input and insight into your life. And it's like, how do we deal with that? And then we followed it up talking about those critical people, the people who we can never seem to satisfy, who always have something to say, who always just want to share their opinion or voice their ideas about the things that are going on. And the reality is they can be the same person, right? The controlling person can also be the critical person, or if we're lucky, we get to deal with multiple types of problem people. So this week we're going to talk about a special person, special people that all of us at some point in our lives have dealt with. And it's those people that just need a little extra. They need a little extra love. They need a little extra attention. They need a little extra time. They need a little extra money. They need a second chance. They need. And we wish that they would come with like a warning label that says on their forehead as they're walking up to us, a little extra grace is required in dealing with those people, because it will make our lives so much easier. We know kind of what to expect. But we're going to talk about those needy, clingy, codependent people. And I just want to preface it. This is given in love, and I hope it's received in love, right? Like as we talk about this, I know it's not the funnest thing to talk about or the easiest thing to talk about, but it's necessary. And it's also necessary for us to recognize that we're dealing with needy, clingy, codependent people, that there are two sides to that coin, right? There's two sides to the clingy coin. And the first one is this. It's those that are needy. Wonderful insight right there, right? No, those that are needy. It's those people who if you ask them the question, how you doing? You might as well get comfortable. You might as well get yourself some coffee, sit down, relax, take your shoes off, put your feet up, because that conversation is going to go on and on and on. They just need to talk about it. They just need all these problems. Or, it's that person that every time they text you, it's like, what do they need this time? Like, man, I know they need something. They're hitting me up. They're going to ask me for something. Or we go the extra mile and we give them a special ringtone that's like an alarm going off in our pocket whenever they call, because they're going to be asking me for something, and I just don't want to have to deal with it. Or they're always in crisis. There's always something going on. There's always a larger-than-life problem. There's always something that they can't deal with. That's just something happening to them, and woe is me, and they're always the victim. We're like, can you just figure it out? And then the other side of that coin is those that need to be needed. And that's a little bit harder to identify as a clingy person, because on the surface, it seems like they have it all figured out. On the surface, it seems like they're helping everybody. On the surface, it seems like they kind of got life figured out and they got it all together. But the reality is they're clingy as well, because they need to be needed. And what they tend to do is they surround themselves with people that need them. If you begin to look at their relationships, you begin to look at how they operate, you notice that the only people that they have around them on a consistent basis are people who need something from them. So work for a guy like this, and I would always say that the employees there, the workforce there, was like his collection of broken toys. Because everybody had a little issue. Everybody came to him in need and in crisis. Like everybody and he surrounded himself with that. But if you begin to look at the life, it's like, well, who are the people that can hold you accountable? Who are the people that can speak into your life? Who are the people that can help challenge you and help you to grow? They don't surround themselves with people like that. And then once you no longer need them, they get weird. Right? Once you no longer need what they have, once you no longer need their resources, once you no longer need their opportunities or need them to open doors, then they get weird in a relationship because they don't know any other context to connect than being in a position to give people what they need. Or you have those people that are the self-appointed gatekeepers of your friend circle, right? The self-appointed gatekeepers of the places to go. It's like, hey, you want to know where to go? They know how to go. Like, I can help you out. I can help you. You need me. Trust me. You want to get in? I can get you a good seat. You want to go here? I can get you a deal. You want to do this? I can get you that. Just trust me. Trust me. You should have called me. You should have called me. I could have got you in. You need me. Don't you know that you need me? You need me to help you. You need me to open that door for you. You need me to do this for you. And you're like, they just need to be needed. Or they love to make themselves necessary, right? Because of their skills or abilities. It's like, well, I can do this, and good luck finding someone else that can. Like, they need to be needed. And as we engage in these relationships, we connect with these people, and we get frustrated because of the way that they're connecting with us. But the reality is, and we've said this before, we've said this all throughout this series, is that our relationships are a combination of what we've created and what we allow. Right? The healthy patterns and the healthy context and the healthy relationships that we create. And then there's the unhealthy ones that we allow. We allow them to be needy. We allow them to control. We allow them to be critical. We allow these things in our life. And then we get frustrated with how things are going. But the reality is that we've allowed it, and we have a choice to make to continue down that path or to do something different. But doesn't sometimes we just feel stuck, right? We just feel stuck. But here's the thing. Codependent people are just that. They're codependent. Right? They're not the only problem person in the situation, in the scenario. They're codependent. Those that need people are in need of that. And those that need people to need them find people that need them. And needy people find people that'll feed the need. And so sometimes we find ourselves in a situation where we're constantly meeting someone else's needs, or we're constantly giving of them, or we're connected with somebody that we always need something from, and we feel stuck. We feel stuck in that relationship. We feel stuck in that context, and we don't know which way to go. We don't know how to have a better relationship or a healthier relationship. And the best way that we can begin to move forward is to identify what's really going on and identify the ways in which we get stuck to clingy people. So one of the ways that we get stuck is this, if you're following along in your notes, it's with a little bit of guilt. Just a dot, not a lot. Just a little bit of guilt, right? We feel sorry for them. We feel sorry because of the situation that they find themselves in. They just lost a job, or they just lost someone close to them, or they came from a bad neighborhood, or they was kind of dealt a bad hand in life, or their parents weren't really around, or they were abused, or we feel sorry for them, and so we enable them. We get stuck in this relationship, and they continue to be in need, and it's draining the life out of us, but we feel guilty because if we take a step back and move, then who's going to feel that need for them? Right, we say, who's going to feel that need? I'm stuck. I feel guilty. Like they deserve better than that. They deserve something good, and we feel sorry for them, so we stay in that relationship because maybe they don't have enough friends. Maybe they don't have a support system, and then we say, man, well, I've been given a lot. God's blessed me with a lot, so how can I not give back? I feel guilty for what God has given me because they don't have anything, and now I'm stuck in this relationship, and I don't know how to get out of it. Or there's a sense of obligation. There's this sense of obligation that says, like, hey, we're responsible for their health and well-being, that we're responsible for the decisions that they make, that we're responsible for the course that their life is taking. And we feel obligated to do something about it. We feel obligated to kind of stay in that relationship. We feel obligated to continue to offer advice. We feel obligated to continue to give up our time, to continue to give them access, to continue to give them resources because we're obligated. We're responsible for their success or their failure. Or we stay at a job or in a role because, well, when we needed it, they provided, but now I'm moving on to something else. God is calling me to something else. Other doors are opening, but I owe them my time, and I owe them my effort, and I owe them my energy, so we stay stuck. Or maybe it's our own good intentions. We want to do good, right? It's the Christ-like thing to do. We want to be a blessing to someone else. We want to do good. We recognize that there is a need, and we want to do something about it. We're trying to be Christ-like and altruistic, so we continue to offer advice. We continue to offer resources. We continue to offer time, attention, and we feel good about ourselves for doing it, right? It makes us feel good about ourselves. You know what? I can say that I am a CHRISTIAN because I went out of my way. I'm helping this person. right? I'm helping them. I'm doing my part. I'm coming alongside somebody. I'm discipling them. I'm involved in their life. I'm pointing them in the right direction. I'm a mentor in their life. But the reality, they're not even listening to you. They just want to call you to feel good about the bad things that they're doing, and they just want to take up your time and your energy, and you get frustrated with it, and you recognize it, but at the end of the day, you feel good because at least you did something, right? I'm doing good, at least I did something. But the reality is there's no growth or progress. We just stay stuck in the same cycle of need and want and need and want. We stay stuck in those same cycles. And if we're being real, those cycles, that cycle is draining the life out of us. So we can't even live into the things that God has for us, and they're not living into the things that God has for us. So the question becomes, how do we approach these relationships in a healthy way? How do we do something different? What's the direction that we are supposed to take? And there's a story that's found in the book of Acts that I think can help us find a better way to deal with the codependent, to deal with the clingy, and to deal with the needy people. And if we're going to following along in your notes or on the screen, it starts in Acts chapter 3, verses 1 through 5. It says, one day, Peter and John were going to the temple at the time of prayer. It was about 3 in the afternoon, and now a man who was lame from birth was being carried to the temple gate called Beautiful, where he was put there every day to beg from those going into the temple courts. And when he saw Peter and John enter, he asked them for money. And Peter looked straight at him, as did John. Then Peter said, look at us. So the man gave him his attention, expecting to get something from them. Right? He gave them his attention, expecting to get something from him. And how many of us know that there are people in our lives that every time we engage with them, every time we talk to them, every time we interact with them, they look at us expecting to get something from us. Expecting to receive, expecting to get something from us. So how we respond to that expectation, it makes all the difference in the world. See, I love that Peter and John, they have a response to this man's expectations. We also have a responsibility to respond to these expectations in a way that is life-giving. But there are 3 ways that we can respond to somebody who's looking at us expecting to get something in return. And the first way that we can respond is to willfully enable them. To willfully enable. Right? Enablers. Nobody likes to be identified as an enabler. Nobody likes to acknowledge that they're enabling. And sometimes we recognize it and we don't know how to stop it because we're caught in this cycle because our guilt and our obligation, and we feel like, man, I need to be doing something. And so we get caught in this cycle of enabling. See, Peter and John, they had a choice to make when this man, he's looking at them, expecting to get something in return, as every single person who passed by him had gave him something because this man's life had been identified by need. He was lame from birth. Every single day of his life, he was in need. He was somebody that people gave something to. They continued to meet that need. He was in pain. He was lame. He couldn't do anything for himself. So people would just, here, give him a little money. And he would come back the next day and get a little money. And come back the next day and get a little money. He was caught in this endless cycle of need. And the superficial need was being met. He was given resources. Time and time and time again. They would hand out and hand out and hand out and hand out. And he would sit there and stick his hand out again and stick his hand out again and stick his hand out again. He was enabled to come back and ask for the same thing day in and day out. They could have willfully enabled him. So we look at these relationships in our lives. We have to ask ourselves, we have to be honest and transparent with ourselves, be real with ourselves and say, hey, are we willfully enabling these people in this relationship? Are we trying to protect them from consequences? Right? These people that are coming to us, they're in need, they're needy, they're codependent, they can't seem to figure it out on their own. Are we protecting them from the consequences? Are we jumping in the way and saying, you know, I'm going to shield you. I know you made a bad choice, but you shouldn't have to deal with that. You shouldn't have to suffer those consequences. I'm going to protect you from that. I'm going to help you. I'm going to save the day. I'm going to pay your rent. I'm going to move you in. I'm going to do all of these things for you, overextending myself, making it harder on me to continue to be what God has called me to be because I feel responsible for your decisions and your choices and your actions. Woefully enabling, or we begin to excuse and cover up unhealthy behavior. We see them going down the wrong path. We see them making bad choices. Other people see it, but because maybe we feel responsible, maybe it's our child, and you know what? I should have been there for them. I shouldn't have worked as much. I should have prayed a little bit more. I should have made better choices of who I brought in my home. And now they're growing up and they're adults and they're continually making bad choices, and we somehow feel responsible for that. And we say, man, you know what? I just got to help them. I got to protect them. I got to excuse the behavior. I got to cover it up. I got to offer everybody an explanation. Or the opposite. It's like, I don't want the bad news to come back on me. I don't want their reputation to reflect poorly on me, so I'm going to cover it up. I'm going to hide it. I'm going to act like it doesn't exist. Or we begin to blame ourselves for their actions. You say, man, I should have done more. Man, I should have did this. Man, I should have been there more. Man, I should have answered the phone call. You know, I should have gave him that money. Right? They ask, and we finally get up the courage to say no. Then they pout and they throw a fit, and then they go and make a bad choice, and we feel guilty. Man, you know what? If I just given it to them, maybe they wouldn't have done that. But the reality is we're not responsible for anybody's choices. Even if they're our children, even if they're people that are closest to us, we are not responsible for the choices that they make. Or we're always putting their needs above our own. Right? We're always putting their needs above our own, going above and beyond to help them, going above and beyond, paying their rent, putting gas in their car, taking care of the kids, like all of these things to the point where it's to our detriment. Right? It's okay to help people, but we don't overextend ourselves and say, you know what, the door's always open, the fridge is always open, and they come and they eat, and they never ask you, hey, do you need anything? They never ask, hey, can I help you with something? Your needs are never a concern, or they are, but just so they can give themselves the excuse to ask for more. Right? They say they call you up. You're like, oh, man, what do they want this time? And then to your surprise, hey, how are you doing? You're like, how am I doing? You're concerned with how I'm doing? And then you begin to tell them how you're doing. Then they hurry up and switch the conversation. Yeah, man, you know what? Things are really rough right now. They pull the old okey doke on you. Or they get wise. They get real wise to the game. And they'll call you the day before they're going to ask you for something just to be nice to you. Like, hey, man, how's it going? How's the kids? How's the family? Oh, things are going good. That's good. Hang up. Call you back the next day. Hey, man, I know we just talked. It's crazy I didn't bring this up, but I'm going to need something. You're like, so you don't really care. You're not really concerned with my needs. You're just trying to get something from me. And see, none of these responses actually help the situation. They only make it worse. Or, this is my favorite one to do, if I'm being honest. We blissfully ignore it. Right? Peter and James, Peter and John, they could have looked at this man, saw that he was in need, saw that his hand was out, recognized that he would be there tomorrow, and the next day, that he's always been there, and they could have just walked straight past him. Right? They could have just said, you know what, I don't have the time to deal with this today. I don't have the resources. I don't have the energy. I don't have any money. Pat the pockets, say, you know what, I'm sorry, and move on. Right? Blissfully ignore it. Act like it's not there. And we tend to do that in our lives with these people. They become too needy, so we say, you know what, I'm going to just cut them out. I'm going to just cut them out. I'm not going to deal with them. I'm not going to talk to them. I'm not going to see them. I'm not going to invite them over. I'm not going to go to their birthday parties or their functions. I just don't want to deal with them. I don't want to deal with the drama. I don't want to deal with the nonsense. I don't want to deal with all the issues. So I'm just act like they're not around. And then we go to the next step and we start blocking them on Facebook. Say, ooh, block. And then they ask us, hey, man, did you block me on Facebook? You're like, what? No, me? Facebook crazy. You know, they got glitches and stuff, man. It's weird stuff happen on social media. We friends in real life anyway. Don't worry about Facebook. Aren't you making too much out of that, right? Or we say, you know what? I'm not going to block them because I don't want to have that conversation. But I will unfollow them, right? I don't want to see it because I don't want to see the long paragraph Jane Austen novel post that you always got on Tuesday, right? You're like, Saturday comes, oh, man, everything's going bad, but I'm going to go to church. Then you come to church, and then you write this long post about how God is good, and then come Tuesday, you're already in another situation and some more drama. And I, quite frankly, don't want to deal with it. Because I see it, and it's too long, it stresses me out, and I don't need that kind of stress in my life. I'm trying to make good choices, right? And so I move on. If I'm going to be real with you guys, if I see a post longer than 4 sentences, I don't read it. Won't read it. Don't happen. I'm like, if it's longer than a 5th grader's introductory paragraph, right? I'm talking topic sentence, concrete detail, commentary, close. That's it. That's all I can deal with. 4 sentences, that's a little too much. I don't want to deal with it. I will like it, though. I got to do one of those reactions because I don't want you to ask me, did you see my post? I'm like, yeah, I liked it, duh. Like, did I see your post? Blissfully ignore, right? We act like it's not there. We just ignore the situation. But that doesn't solve the problem. That doesn't fix anything. That doesn't help us to have healthy relationship. There's still stress there. There's still issues there. Or the other way that we can ignore things is we try to fix it. Right? We ignore the real problem. We ignore the real issue. We ignore what's really going on by trying to fix all the symptoms, to fix things on the surface, to say, you know what, let me put this all back together real nice and pretty and then move it off to the side so I don't have to deal with it. Right? Men, we tend to do this. Our wife will come home and say, hey, you say, hey, how was your day, babe? And she's like, oh, you know what? Like this was going on and then this person said this. And we're like, I know what you need to do. You need to tell them that the next time they talk to you like that, right? You start giving advice. Oh, you just need to, go in a different break room, or you start offering solutions and trying to fix the situation. When the reality is they're not looking to you to fix the situation. They're just looking for somebody to hear them. But we ignore the real need, right? Connection. We ignore the real need of affirmation. We ignore the real need of time and say, I'm going to fix this so I don't have to deal with it so I can move on with whatever else I'm interested in. We blissfully ignore it. Right? We have the choice to either willfully enable, blissfully ignore, or we can choose to radically restore. I love that the story doesn't stop there with the man just expecting to get something from them, but it continues on in verses 6 and 7. It says, Peter said to him, as he's looking at him, expecting to get something from them, he says this, silver and gold I do not have, but what I do have, I give to you. In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, walk. And taking him by the right hand, he helped him up, and instantly the man's feet and ankles became strong. See, he said, look, I don't have what you're asking me for. I could have did the whole pat the pocket and walk on like, you know what? I only got cars today, my man. Can't help you out. I don't have any spare change. They could have said somebody else is going to handle the situation. They could have said, you know what? Here's just a little bit of something to appease you, to make me feel good about myself, to make me feel good about what I'm doing. But no, instead, he says, you know what? I don't have what you're asking for. I don't have what you think you need. But what I do have is something that will meet every single need in your life from now moving on. What I do have is Jesus Christ. And I'm going to stick out my hand as you're looking to get something from me. You're going to get something greater than you could have ever imagined. I'm going to invite you to stand up and walk because of the name and the power of Jesus. And this man stood up. He took that hand and he got up and moved forward. He was radically restored. Radically restored because Peter and John recognized and realized that in that moment they had a choice to make. They could have enabled him. They could have ignored him. But instead they chose to lean into the situation and let God do a radical restorative work in his life. They were able to help without hurting. They were able to help without continuing the cycle of need. They were actually able to bring something to this man's life that invited him to live into God's greater. So the question becomes for us is how do we help without hurting? Well, the first thing is to choose to empower instead of enable. We choose to empower instead of enable. I love that as Peter looks at him, he sticks his hand out as a man is looking for something. And he says, hey, take my hand. And Peter helped him stand up on his own strength. It doesn't say Peter picked him up and moved his legs himself and straightened it all out and then made him walk like this. No, Peter helped him stand up on it. He empowered him to stand. He had that man make a choice. Do you choose to trust God? Do you choose to look at an impossible situation and trust in a God that makes a way where there seems to be no way? Do you choose to believe that God can do something greater in your life, that he can open doors that nobody can open, that he can begin to heal, restore, and transform your life? Or are you going to stay stuck in the mess and stay stuck in the pain and stay stuck in the hurt? The choice is yours. I'm going to empower you to make a choice. I'm going to stand alongside you, and I'm going to offer you a hand up instead of a hand out. See, a hand out will appease me. It'll make me feel good about myself in the moment. But a hand up will radically restore somebody's life. To say, hey, I'm going to challenge you to stand up and trust God. I'm going to challenge you to place your faith in God. I'm going to challenge you to stand up on your own strength and say, I don't know, I don't understand, but I know God can. There's an old adage that you've heard it before. It says, give a man the fish, he'll eat for a day. You teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. Right? We can consistently give and meet the superficial need and throw money at the problem and throw advice at the problem and throw our time and attention at the problem. But we all know and we recognize and realize that it's going nowhere. And so with Peter and John, they say, hey, you know what? I'm going to point you to Jesus. I don't have what you need. I got to say no. I got to set a clear boundary. But what I'm not going to leave it right there. I'm going to say, hey, I don't have what you think you need, but I have Jesus. I'm going to give you something that is life transforming. I'm going to give you something that is life giving. See, sometimes saying no is the best thing we can do to help somebody move forward. When they call and say, hey, can you? No, I can't. I'm sorry. No, I can't. I'm sorry. No, I can't do that. And I know it hurts and I know it's hard and I know it goes against what we want to do in that moment, but sometimes we just got to say no. Because when we say yes all the time, when we come to the rescue all the time, we're actually getting in God's way and we're blocking God's greater in their life. See, Peter and John could have said, here's some money, and walked right past the man, and that man would have never received the healing that God had in store for him that day as he sat in front of that gate. But instead, they chose to lean into the situation and empower instead of enable, and God did what God is only able to do. Instead of allowing them to stay stuck, we point them to the next step. The other way we can help without hurting is we're moved with compassion rather than guilt or complacency. Compassion. See, as Peter engages this man, he sees this man, and I would imagine that this man, he was accustomed to sitting there begging at the gate, handing his hand out, not looking in people's faces because he bore the shame of being destitute. He bore the shame of being an outcast in society. So he's sitting there. He's saying, would you please give me some money? Would you please give me some money? And Peter, he says, hey, look at me. Look at me. He acknowledged this man's humanity. He acknowledged that he was made in the image of God, acknowledged that he was worth something, acknowledged that he was fearfully and wonderfully made, acknowledged that the same God that loved Peter dearly loved this man as well. And he says, hey, I need you to understand something about yourself. You are not damaged. You are not broken. You've just been dealt a bad hand, but God loves you and he's not going to leave you there. Would you look at me? I'm going to acknowledge who you are. I'm going to show you some love. And the man looked up at him, and Peter chose to lean into the situation instead of getting uncomfortable and walking away. Says, man, I see the shame, I see the hurt, I see the desperation, I see the need, and I don't want to get myself dirty. I don't want to deal with it, and so I shrink back. Or we say, man, I see somebody, one of God's children, that is in desperate need of what God can do in their life. I'm going to choose to acknowledge them, be moved with compassion, and lean in. Amen. This is what I love about Jesus. Jesus, he's walking on this earth. He's going through his day. He's going about his ministry here on this earth. He's touching people. He's healing people, and he could have very easily felt guilty about humanity. This is the creator of all humanity. This is the one who gave us free will, who gave us the choice, and we treated that gift recklessly, and humanity is now in a dire situation. People are far from God, and could have easily said, man, I could have done more. Maybe I should have revealed myself more. Maybe I should have went, a little bit deeper with them. Maybe I should have given them a little bit more. Maybe a few more miracles. Maybe more words. Maybe I shouldn't have went silent. Maybe I could have done all of these different things. But that's not what Jesus was motivated by. That's not what moved him. He could have very easily been, you know what? I don't want to deal with it. I gave them the choice. I revealed myself to them. I gave them everything that they could have needed to make the right choices, and they still choose not to. So you know what? I'm not going to get my hands dirty. I'm not going to deal with it. I'm not going to continue to stress myself out. You know what? They made their bed. They can lay in it. And been complacent and said, you know what? I don't care. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want anything. But instead, Scripture tells us that as Jesus came here, he saw those sick. He saw those in need. He was moved with compassion. He was moved with compassion. He let compassion be the motivation behind his action that he took in each and every interaction with people. What would our interactions with difficult people in our lives be if we prayed and asked God for compassion instead of praying and asking God for them not to show up on Thanksgiving? He said, you know what, God, please let them get like a flat tire. Not like the front tire, but like a minor inconvenience, Lord. Please let somebody get like sick. Not like real sick, but like a little sick, because I just don't want to deal with them. Like we pray and we say, God, I just don't want to deal with this person today. Like let them not show up to work, or let them not notice me when I come in, or let this happen. And we pray that we can avoid the situation. But what if instead we said, God, would you help me to be moved with compassion? God, instead of feeling bad about where they're going, instead of feeling bad about the choices my children are making, instead of feeling guilty about this, God, would you help me to be moved with compassion as I engage and interact with them so that I can make a God-honoring choice in this relationship? So that I can help point them to you. God, would you stir in me some compassion? See, the last thing that we can do is we actually need to let God be the hero. I love that Peter, he gets there and he says, hey, silver and gold I do not have. But he doesn't say, but upon this rock, Jesus said he'll build his church. And I'm Peter, the apostle. I'm Peter, the blood-bought child of the Most High God. I'm Peter, the prophet. I'm Peter with all the anointing and power. And so with the power that God has given me, I'm going to tell you, stand up, young man. Yes. Right, he didn't say that. Like Peter didn't make himself the star of the show. He said, in the name of Jesus, stand up and walk. He let God be the hero. Because if we're being real with ourselves, we know we're terrible heroes. We're terrible heroes. Right, when we always have to be the star of the show, and we always have to be the hero to save somebody, the reality is we end up having to wear the mask all the time. We can never be real about what's going on in our life. We can never be honest with God about our weaknesses. We can never be honest with others about the fact that we can't do it because we have to be the hero. We have to save the day. And so we overextend ourselves, we deplete ourselves, we frustrate ourselves, and then we blame them for sucking the life out of us when we've chosen to step into a role that we were never designed to step into in the first place. God is the hero. God is the one that saves. We can't save anybody. Right? We make terrible heroes. We try to save everybody, and the reality is we can't save anybody. We can't even save ourselves. So what makes us think that we can save those people that God can only save? We're like, hey, man, they need help. I'm going to go and save them. I'm going to go alongside them. I'm going to teach them the right thing to do. I'm going to be the example to them. I'm going to save them. I'm going to bring them in. No, God is the hero. He's the one that saves. We have to be okay with not getting the credit, though. So we have to be okay with people not acknowledging that it was us. The story continues. It says in Acts 3, verses 8 and 10, that the man, he jumped on his feet and began to walk. Then he went with them into the temple courts, walking and leaping and praising Peter and James. No, walking and leaping and praising God. When all the people saw him walking and praising God, they recognized him as the same man who used to sit begging at the temple gate called Beautiful. And they were filled with wonder and amazement at what had happened. See, Peter was okay that he didn't get the credit. But a lot of times, we like getting the credit, right? We work with somebody, we help them out a lot, and they start doing good in life, and they start telling the story of how they, their rags to riches story, and we're like, I better be in the first chapter, bro. Or you better throw me in there. They get up, they start sharing their testimony, and they don't mention your name, and you get all offended. Like, what? How did you even... Jesus just came to you. How did Jesus come to you? How do you even know about Jesus? You ain't know nothing about Jesus when you was out there on the streets. I told you about Jesus, and we want to be the hero, right? You wouldn't know nothing about Jesus if it wasn't for me. So why don't you give honor where honor is due, right? We want to be famous, right? We want to, like, they write the autobiography, they get a movie about their life, and I'm like, yeah, like, I need Sterling K. Brown to play me, right? I'm gonna need that. I'm gonna need you to come correct when you start talking about the things that I've done for you. Who baptized you? Who discipled you? Who did this for you? Who helped you when you needed help, right? And we want to be the hero. We want to get the credit. But the reality is, we didn't do any of that, right? All we're supposed to do is help people discover and follow Jesus. We point people back to him. We say, hey, silver and gold I do not have. And I don't say, hey, but what I have is a little bit of advice. And what I have is a little bit of knowledge. And what I have is a little bit of know-how. And what I have is a little bit of show you, right? And we think that we have it all together. We have all the answers. We want to point people in that direction because we know best. And then we lead them far away from what God has for them. Instead, we have to be okay with not getting any credit. He's walking and leaping and praising God, not Peter. He's walking and leaping and praising God. And then the people who saw him, who knew him, who recognized him as the same man that used to sit lame, the same dudes that used to bring him out and sit him down, they say, hey, man, that's the same guy that used to be. He was lame from birth. I know him. His parents, his siblings, his community, they all recognize him as the same person who had been in need. And now something is different about his life. And they're filled with wonder and amazement because he is giving the credit to Jesus. And now they are able to now begin to discover who Jesus is for themselves. See, but if they're giving credit to you, people are going to come to you. And again, you don't have the capacity to save anybody. People are like, hey, what did you tell him? What did you do? How did you do it? How did you save him? What did you say? What did you give him? What did you say? And you're like, I don't know. Like, but when we lift up Jesus, right, when he's lifted up, his word says he'll draw people to him. Right, when he is lifted up, people will be drawn to him. People are like, man, I need to get a hold of that. God is doing something amazing. It's like, man, it's all about Jesus. And man, I was over here, I was struggling, I was hurting, but somebody pointed me to Jesus, and I'm telling you, that made all the difference in the world. And people who know them will know it's true. Like, I know what they were like. I dealt with this person, and something is different about them, and that difference is Jesus. Amen. See, when it's not about us or what we can do or what we know, instead, our focus and motivation is helping people discover and follow Jesus. Real change can happen in people's lives, even the problem people. Right? It's change that other people will recognize, that other people can't deny, and that in turn also helps them. People who we may not even have access to, who we may not even know, it will also help them begin to discover and follow Jesus as well. But that can't happen if we're the hero. Right? That can't happen when we have all the answers, when we put ourselves in a position to meet needs that we were never made to meet. It doesn't happen when we move through life jaded and dismissive. It doesn't happen when we're dismissive of even the problem people in our lives. And it especially doesn't happen when we treat people as projects. Say, man, you know, if they got issues, they got problems. It's my responsibility to fix them. It's my responsibility to point them in the right direction. This is my project. I'm going to make it my life's work to help them out. Right? We treat them as projects. Every time they're talking to us, we're trying to figure out how to fix them. Every time they come to us, we're trying to figure out how to fix the situation, fix them, be the hero, step in, save the day, and we deal with them as projects. But the truth is, people in need are not projects we help. They're people we love. They're people we love, right? They're not projects that we help. They are people that we love. And sometimes, love says no. Sometimes, when people are looking at us expecting to get something from us, the appropriate thing to do in love is to say no. To say, I can't. Say, you know what? I'm not able to. Right? To say, hey, would you stand? And if they're not willing to stand, we don't go any further than that. We say, you know what? I'm going to continue to offer you my hand and continue to offer you to ask you to trust God and to stand. See, a lot of times we get caught up in this standoff, right? Say, hey, we say no, and they say why, and they stomp and they pout and they do their thing, And they know that if they hold out long enough, that we'll come in and try to save the day, that we'll give in. But love says, no, I'm sorry, I can't. That's not the best thing for you. Sometimes love challenges instead of agrees or affirms. Right? Sometimes in love, we say, hey, all right, it sounds like that was your fault. It sounds like you made some bad choices. It sounds like you got to deal with the consequences of your actions. Instead of saying, man, I can't believe they did that to you, man. I can't believe, they're going to charge you with all of that? Come on, man. Right? Sometimes love says, I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you to take a next step. I'm going to challenge you to do better. I'm going to challenge you to get some accountability in your life. I'm going to challenge you to make better choices. And sometimes love means setting boundaries. Saying, you know what? I can't go there with you. I can't do that for you. I can't be always available. This is what I can give you. This is what I can do, but I can't do everything. See, because in saying yes, we can fail. In coming to the rescue, we can disappoint a lot of people. And having all the answers, we can get it wrong. But love never fails. Right? Love never fails because love, it points people back to him. Love realizes that it's God that makes the difference. It is Jesus that restores. It is Jesus that heals. It is Jesus that empowers. That is Jesus that sets the direction of their life. That is in his hands and his hands alone that they can begin to walk in restoration and in healing and in victory. And then the question that we all have, if we're dealing with needy people, it actually never gets asked or answered. But we all have it. And it's this. What about my needs? Because if we're being real, we're all a little needy sometimes, right? If we're being honest with ourselves, we all have needs. We're all a little needy at times. We all want those needs met. And nobody goes through life saying, I don't want any of my needs met. I'm content to just be disappointed, right? Unless you've been hurt so much to where your expectations that nobody's ever going to care about you. But the truth is that God cares and that he's wanting and ready to meet the needs that you have. See, but when we don't acknowledge or communicate our needs because of pain or because of pride, they'll most likely go unmet, or we'll meet them in unhealthy ways. Or we'll go to the wrong places and to the wrong people and do the wrong things to try to meet those needs because we're not communicating them or acknowledging them or being honest with ourselves about the things that we need. You want to know what causes the most fights in my house? My wife gave me the okay to tell you guys this. For real, actually yesterday, I was like, hey, can I say this? She was like, yeah, that's fine. As long as you acknowledge that you're wrong. No. You know what causes the most fights in my house is a simple question. The question that everybody asks at some point in their life. And it's this. What do you want to eat? How many are with me? You get in these arguments, right? What do you want to eat? Because I don't want to communicate what I actually want, right? I don't want to say what I'm actually looking for. I don't want to communicate my needs because what I really want or what I think I need is Taco Bell. But I know Taco Bell is a little guilty pleasure, okay? Even though everything on the menu tastes the same. But right. So I don't want to communicate that and put that out there because now, I'm being vulnerable with somebody. Right now I'm being open and honest with somebody. But the reality is we have a lot of needs that we have and a lot of things that we want that we don't communicate with the people close to us. We have expectations that go uncommunicated, and expectations always go unmet. And then we get frustrated with people because they're not being who we thought they needed to be or who they thought they should be in our relationship. They're not calling us enough or talking to us enough or encouraging us enough or just being present enough, and we don't communicate those things to them, but we get frustrated with them because they're not being what we think they should be, but we're not communicating our needs. We're not being honest with ourselves and honest with God and honest with the people around us about the things that we need and want in life, and those needs consistently go unmet, and so we begin to look in other places, in dark places, in painful places, and hurtful places to meet them, and then we cause a lot of collateral damage and broken relationships because we're not taking the appropriate steps. So what about how do I take care of them? What am I supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? And the best thing that we can do is acknowledge that we don't have it all, know it all, and that we can't do it all. We acknowledge that, and then we take that to God in prayer. We say, man, I don't have it all. I don't have everything. I don't know it all. I can't figure my way out of this situation. I can't do it all. I can't just will myself through this. So God, I'm going to bring this to you. I love that David the psalmist, the king, King David, the man who on the surface he had it all. He's king. He's anointed by God. He slayed Goliath. He has victory after victory after victory. He's writing the Bible, for goodness sakes. This man has it all, right? On the surface, he shouldn't be in need of anything, but David acknowledges the reality that there are certain needs that only God can meet. You can have all the stuff in the world, but there are certain needs that only God can meet. And he pens these words in Psalm 70, verse 5. He says, as for me, I am poor and needy. Come quickly to me, O God. You are my help and my deliverer. And Lord, do not delay. See, David says, I am in need. I'm desperate. I'm destitute. I don't have it all. I don't know it all. I can't do it all. So God, I'm bringing this to you, because the truth is that there are certain needs in our life that only God can meet. And when we don't go to God to meet them, we begin to look to other people and to other things to meet those needs. And we place a burden on people that they can't carry. And then we have unmet expectations. Even if we communicate them, they're just not able to, because they're not designed to. God is saying, I am able to. I want to be this for you. I want you to come to me. Acknowledge that I am your help. I am your deliverer. Take it to God. But don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying we take all of our issues and all our problems to God and we don't have to deal with people anymore. I'm not saying that God is the only thing that we ever need in life. God has designed us in such a way that there are certain needs that only He can meet. But He also designed us in such a way that there are certain needs in our life that can only be met in the context of healthy relationships. That can only be met in the context of a healthy connection relationship with His church. That can only be met in the context of us pouring out after God has poured so much into us. See, but if we're going to God with issues that He has designed for us to have met in the context of relationship, we begin to be frustrated with God as well. Well, God, how come you aren't blessing me enough? God, how come you aren't talking to me enough? God, how come you aren't solving all of these problems? And He said, hey, I'm meeting the need that only I can meet, and I'm pointing you in the direction of people that can love you, that can care for you. I'm pointing you in the direction of things that will help you realize my best for your life. But you continually choose to ignore those things and put the burden on me to be what I've called you to get elsewhere. It's not separate from God. He's just saying, hey, connect with those people. Connect with the family of God. Be in relationship. Be connected. Be giving back. Be pouring out. Be doing what I've called you to be. See, we all have needs. It's okay to have needs. But God never designed us to be needy.